Welcome to Locked On Golden Knights. VGK jumps on Winnipeg early to halt a Jets 5-game win streak over the Golden Knights as the home team prevails 5-2.
You're Locked On Golden Knights, your daily podcast on the Vegas Golden Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hi again, everyone. I'm Tony Cardasco, along with Chris Golick. You could find us on Twitter at Tony Dasco, at TD Chris G, at Locked On VGK, and don't forget about our YouTube channel. Please subscribe today, and that is Locked On VGK. So, Chris, the Golden Knights responded well early on Thursday night as they built that early 4-0 lead in the first period over Winnipeg, over a leg-weary team. It was kind of sloppy, a lot of turnovers early for the Jets. It was a 5-2 VGK victory at T-Mobile, and it didn't take long for VGK to get started. Jack Eichel scoring twice, both goals coming off of turnovers. The first one was on that 2-on-1 break. It was 3-on-1 for a moment, and Riley Smith feeding the driving Jack Eichel, who scored on the wrister as he goes top shelf. And then there was some more turnovers. The Winnipeg zone by the Jets, and then the second goal for Eichel that came off of an errant pass. It was intended for Appleton by Riddick out there in front of the goal, and he just sends it right to Eichel, who twists and turns and then fires it home in net. And then also William Karlsson scored, Chandler Stevenson scored. They tally goals, and then Jonathan Marchessault scores on the empty netter. You were at the game last night, Chris. What were your observations about this contest?
So the observations were kind of what we talked about, Tony. The first few minutes of the game, Winnipeg had a decent push, and then it pretty much went the way you and I talked about. We wanted to see VGK have a quick response to the push from the Jets, and we said Jack Eichel needs to take over a game like this that might be a bit muddy in the defensive zone, a spot where Jack Eichel might find some space and an opportunity to do some things. It wasn't that type of night for Jack Eichel, but when he had his opportunities, he made them count. Of course, the 2-on-1 right away, right in the top shelf, just a beautiful goal. A couple goals later, Rittich, not sure what he's doing there, but it's a gift for Jack Eichel, and the team had an impeccable first period. It changed a little bit after that, in my opinion, but they had an impeccable first period, exactly what they needed to do against a team that was on the second half of a back-to-back off a big win, an unexpected win. I'm sure they were a sizable underdog in the books against Colorado the previous night. Give credit to Winnipeg. They played a very good game. Take out that, not even the entire first period, Tony, just take out a few moments of the first period where the wheels came off for a couple odd man rushes and the strange turnover by Rittich. You take those out of the game, and this is possibly a different outcome. Winnipeg also almost did climb the hill yesterday, and I was really curious to see how things were going to shake out in the mood of Cassidy in the post-game presser afterwards.
And did you had a question for Coach Cassidy, right, at the presser? How did he respond?
I was curious about the second periods were kind of the same, not so much in the penalty department, but the second period against Winnipeg and the second period against Calgary. Of course, against Calgary, the second period, just the wheels came completely off. But I felt they didn't do much better in the second period tonight, outside of staying out of last night, instead of staying out of the penalty box. So the question was, what kind of message was conveyed against Calgary? Was it a similar message conveyed last night against Winnipeg? And how do you like the response of the team? And it seemed like he was actually somewhat upbeat about things. He did cite the difference in the penalties on Tuesday and surviving the period more or less versus Thursday, keeping your foot on the throttle, so to speak, and kind of getting through the game. So he was upbeat about it. He felt the team avoid giving up a lot of grade A chances, mentioned a chance by Howden, and just the fact that the team kept going.
And the energy last night, big boost as Michael Amadio replaced Paul Cotter, which we could see coming. And Cotter pretty much, according to Cassidy, said he said that he leveled out, in the previous game in Calgary. So you could see a lot of energy that Michael Amadio brought.
Yeah, correct. I was standing with Amadio in the locker room as well afterwards. I couldn't get one in with him. But another reporter did mention, what's the competition like? Is it a healthy competition? Are they pushing each other? And Amadio immediately complimented Cotter on what he's doing on the ice. And then he talked about, his game and such. But I think I made one of my 50 tweets last night or something like that. I did say that Amadio is doing what he can to keep himself in the lineup and not allowing Cassidy to take him out of the lineup. And there's going to be attrition. Things are going to happen. But right now, I would say Cotter is, 19 or even 20 on the depth chart as far as the skaters go, that is, depending, of course, injuries and what happens. If a centerman goes down, that's where Lecision will definitely draw in, I think. If there's a situation with a winger, that's where Cotter's going to draw in. And you could see Cotter getting some spells in the season if just one of our top 9 is a little tired and things like that. If, Carrier or Colasar gets banged up. Shout out to line 4. I don't know if that was in your docket last night, but you can really see that Cassidy turns to line 4 for a lot of reasons. After a goal is scored, here comes line 4. Coming out of a commercial break, sometimes line 4 might even get an extra shift depending on what's happening. But line 4 did a really good job of getting the puck down deep in the offensive zone. And there were multiple shifts where our line 4, that being Colasar, Nick Waugh, and Will Carrier, just control the puck for an entire shift in the offensive zone, just absolutely wearing out the other team's defense. And then that's when our top 9 skill players come in and take advantage of a tired team, especially if they can get them in a long change or something like that.
Winnipeg have the Vegas flu. They got in awfully late the previous night, and then they came out and they did not play well early. I thought the VGK would score 8 to 10 goals at that point after the Golden Knights went up 4-0. But true to form, I guess we see a trend in the early part of this season. Another lapse by the Golden Knights. They went 7 minutes in the second period without even a shot on goal.
No doubt, Tony. And like I said earlier, the second period, 2 nights in a row, it's a concern. Now, glass half full approach, we still almost got out of that Calgary game with a point. We were a post away from a lead with under 6 minutes to go. Riley Smith, that is. And then, it's tough when a team does get out to a lead like that. It's tough to keep the pedal to the metal when you have that 4-goal lead like that. I honestly thought Winnipeg scoring in the second was going to be a blessing for the VGK in the sense that it would be a reminder for them to keep going and keep pushing. And they did have some chances, as Coach Cassidy did allude to last night. But I thought the second period was all Winnipeg all the time. It was tough to find a line. Even the fourth line couldn't do it at times. It was tough to find one line that was going to just turn the momentum. I think I put one mention out in the second period where the ice was tilting a little bit back in VGK's favor, but the second period was just very lackluster. And that's something that, it's early, and we're splitting hairs on a team that's 4-1 right now, which is better than you and I thought they would be early on in this point of the season. So, it's an area of opportunity, and we got Colorado on Saturday. This is our second test, right, Tony? This is going to be the second test of the season, as Cassidy would say, and it's going to take a full 60 minutes.
Another team coming off of a back-to-back. Okay, I'm just getting tired of this because Colorado, we'll talk about it in our next segment, but Colorado plays at Seattle on Friday night. And so I don't know how good this VGK team is, and their first back-to-back won't be until next week when they play Toronto on Monday, and then Tuesday. Well, nice tail end of this, San Jose. I don't want to talk about the Sharks, okay, as a Ranger fan. And Aiden Hill, you had a chance to catch up with him after the game.
Yeah, no doubt. Aiden Hill, super fun just to kind of talk to you, because he was just smiling ear to ear. He's loving every moment of being down in Vegas. I say down because he came from San Jose, of course. But a couple questions I got for him. One, I was kind of playing off of the VGK interview. They were talking about the goalie goal and stuff like that. And because he did take a shot. Aiden Hill did take an attempt at scoring a goal.
I mean, it didn't even clear the blue line.
He took an attempt and almost gave up a goal because he couldn't get back into the net. And I had a couple members of the Associated Press, I didn't catch their names, but they were chuckling and stuff, and some good people around me. I was actually sitting right in front of the Winnipeg Jets broadcast as well, so I got to hear their play-by-play the whole time. It was just,
I was listening to the radio call for a while. Yeah, the first
it was.
period.
I had
and as I had the TV
on. Fair enough. So back to Aiden Hill, a couple questions I got. One was about the goalie goal, if he's ever had one before. He's not had one yet. And then I joked and said, well, are you going to go for one? Do you anticipate getting one? And he chuckled and said, of course, and a couple of pleasantries. But then I caught something, and I put out a tweet about this as well. It was in the third period. He took a shot up high, right off. It was I could tell from where I was, it was like neck level or off the mask. Right afterwards, I noticed the official went to check on him, make sure he was okay. And then the next whistle, he stopped, changed his mask out. So I asked Aiden Hill about that and the importance. Remember, folks, I do referee a lot of beer league hockey out here and stuff like that. So I try and look out for the goalies. Anytime I see any goalie, kid, adult, anything in between, anytime they take a puck up high, that's beyond just something like a little deflection, I'll go and check on them right away, make sure they're okay. Sometimes stop play if I think it's warranted. So I wanted to get Aiden Hill's perspective on how he likes the refs looking out for him and stuff. And he was appreciative. You can tell that. And the interaction was that the ref was asking him if he can keep going because the strap broke, but he wanted to make sure that Aiden Hill could keep the mask on until the next whistle. And that's what happened. Next whistle, he goes and changes it out. And that was that.
Okay, so how does Jack Eichel miss the net? The last hat trick for VGK, as they mentioned, I think on the telecast, I had so many casts going on here last night. 88 games ago for the Vegas Golden Knights. And then, okay, so the grand salami, 12 games in the NHL last night. The over-under was 80.5 goals. I had this vision on this show that Vegas Bjorn, William Karlsson, who never... it never ceases to amaze me how many empty net goals that guy does score. Okay, so we have a breakaway. I'm surprised he gave up the puck to Marchessault, who's looking around for Eichel. But of course, the defensemen were closing. The defenders were closing rather quickly on him. So he just pops it in the net, game, set, match. So it went over by a half a puck.
It went over by a half a puck on the Marchessault empty netter because that was the last game of the night. So, Tony, I don't know what you were doing.
We have a new feature, man. The grand salami, baby.
I don't know what you were cooking in your place last night. I don't know what you were consuming and what had that cloud of thought come into your head there. But I made that wise $24 investment yesterday morning. So I got paid exactly $22.50 for the podcast yesterday morning.
But you got your money's worth on that one for sure.
I didn't know, Tony.
I would have went crazy if he scored on that empty netter.
I wish. So the reason we love sports betting or love opening packs of sports cards and all that, here you go. When you're playing craps, this is actually great. This is from the movie Two for the Money, De Niro, Matthew McConaughey. No, not Pacino. Pacino, not De Niro, Pacino. So they're talking about gambling, right? We're in Vegas. This is a valid topic, of course. And what's the rush when you gamble? And the example that was used, it's when you're at the craps table. It's not at the end of the roll when you win or lose or hit your point or something else. It's the moment the dice leaves the roller's hands, and that moment from while it rolls down, hits the wall, and the result is unveiled by the dice or the stick person making the call. That 2 seconds, 1 second, however long it takes for the dice to come, that's the rush of gambling right there. So where I'm going with this is I lost my sweat equity last night. I was trying to keep up with the totals, but everything happened so fast last night. This was the first time I've ever covered a game like this, and everything was so fast. Like the night was over that fast for me. It was over that fast. But I was trying to count the goals, and a couple times I put updates. I think we need 7. I think we need 6. I need 4, whatever the number was. I did not know at the time that I needed that empty netter. I wish I would have, because I didn't cheer. I was good last night in the press box. I tried to do everything the right way. But I'll tell you right now, if I would have known that empty netter was what we needed, I would have stood up and cheered. I would have stood up and cheered.
Awesome. Great job last night covering the VGK. And coming up next, the reigning Stanley Cup champions Colorado Avalanche come calling on Saturday night. We'll talk about that game. We have a preview when we return right here on Locked On Golden Knights. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your football betting information this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game that you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA. We've got a big UFC card coming up tomorrow, boxing, golf, and the NHL. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn a lot more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Welcome back from Las Vegas. Tony Cardasco and Chris Golick. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel today, Locked On VGK. And Chris, the Bednar blender is alive and well. He's mixing up lines, Jared Bednar. And this past week, some adversity hits the Mile High as we find out that Gabe Landeskog will now be out with a lower body injury. It's a knee for 12 weeks. And last year he missed, I think, 20 or so games for the Avalanche, but they're shaking up the lineup. Bednar called his forward depth inconsistent this past week. The Avs come off of a back-to-back as they come into town. As we discussed earlier, they play at Seattle tonight. So 3 opponents of the 6 are coming off of back-to-backs headed to Las Vegas. So I'm guessing tonight, Pavel Francouz will probably be in net, and VGK will probably see Alexander Georgiev tomorrow night, the Ranger outcast. Is that what outcast? Offcast? What is it? But in any event,
misfit. That we call him misfit.
Yeah. I don't think he's very good because I watched him all season long. Last year, past few seasons, and so they lost the players in the off season. Again, Kadri. They lost Burakovsky. They lost your guy Darcy Kemper. This is a much different team, and I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. At the Fortress tomorrow night. Talk about a look ahead. Oh yeah, someone used your line in the presser, pregame presser about, Coach, do you think that this could be a trap game against Winnipeg? Love it. They're listening there, Chris. But what are your thoughts on this Colorado Avalanche team coming into town?
I don't know. I don't think I invented the trap game, but I understand what you're saying. So, I mean, honestly, tonight's probably the trap game for us, for Colorado and Seattle, I might say, because I got a feeling, Colorado might be looking a little bit past Seattle as they come to Vegas. So that, maybe this is an investment opportunity to throw some sweat on the Kraken tonight. Colorado's experiencing what a lot of Stanley Cup champions experience, and that's attrition, turnover, things like that, losing players via free agency, players that know they can go elsewhere and get paid, starting with Nazem Kadri, of course, who so famously, the moment after he, won the cup and got the first microphone in front of his face, he immediately announced to the world, "I'm not a liability," which also says you're going to pay me some money. And, I think that happened with a couple of players. And you got injuries. You have the fact that now many of these players are first-time Stanley Cup champions. They had a different summer than any other time in their past. So you put all that into a blender, and that could bode for, a rough 14, 15 game stretch to get the season started. And Bednar is going to do what he does to, keep the team as ready as he possibly can. He's a Stanley Cup winning coach, so he's going to figure this out one way or the other. And he's not afraid to call people out, kind of like, Cassidy is here in Vegas. Just looking at some of the results of the Colorado games, they beat Chicago 5-2 in the opener. Chicago actually held their own against Colorado 5-on-5 in that game. Not that there's a lot to take away from there, but what I am looking at next night, back-to-back, mind you, the Avalanche lose in Calgary 5-3. They beat Minnesota the following Monday 6-3. They lose to Winnipeg 4-3. So outside of that game against Chicago, they've given up 3 goals or greater every single game. So they're not getting the early goaltending and defense. VGK is finding ways to score first in games, and VGK is getting goals in waves right now. So this is going to be a tough spot for Colorado tomorrow night. there will be a lot of similarities to, I think, the first period of the Winnipeg game, where Colorado, the first 6 or 7 minutes, watch out, they're going to come hard. And then hopefully we'll find an opportunity or two to capitalize on. I was listening to the pregame on the way in, Millard and Ryan Waller, and I think it was Darren Millard that made the comment, this is a competitive scheduling advantage, alluding to getting not one, but two teams off back-to-backs in the same week of the season. So we need to capitalize. And the schedule will catch up. VGK is going to have their share of back-to-backs throughout the season, and I think later this month, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll work itself out. But for now, gotta get points in the bank, because we learned last year how important each individual point is, and that's something I like about Cassidy this year. After the loss against Calgary Tuesday nights, you could tell that he took it seriously. He wanted to make sure he got the team right, and Cassidy will probably call tomorrow night's game the next test of the regular season.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty decent sized test. Again, in the offseason, they lost these players and they've been shuffling the lineup. And the Avalanche on Thursday signing Dryden Hunt. So the Rangers put Hunt, or as Gerard Gallant calls him, Hunty. Dryden Hunt was put on waivers. And in the interim, Colorado placed Lucas Sedlak on waivers. They wanted to keep him. I think he's on the bottom six, right? They wanted to keep him in the lineup. And so on waivers, Hunt claimed by Colorado, and Sedlak was claimed, he's a fourth liner by Philadelphia. So they lost him, and they had to again finagle. Darren Helm is out. We talked about Landeskog being out. I wanted to ask you a question here about this game. One of our listeners brought this up on our timeline a couple of days ago. This will be the first time that VGK plays Colorado since that Nathan MacKinnon hit on Nolan Patrick, which a lot of folks thought was pretty dirty. It was a fierce hit. And of course, we've not seen nor heard from Nolan Patrick since. So do you think that VG comes out and Nathan MacKinnon could be a marked man here?
It's fair. That's the one thing about hockey players. They definitely don't forget, and they don't necessarily take their liberties during the game when something happens, depending on the situation. There's emotion when that stuff happens, but there's also controlled emotion. And, a lot of times, you get hit, someone knocks you down, you take their number and you file it for future use. And that's fair. It's something I honestly didn't even think about until you just brought that up. I hated that hit. I watched it a couple times and I didn't like anything about that hit. I felt the hit was late. I felt the principal point of contact was like the chin area, if I recall. He got right. He blew him up. I mean, call it what it is.
He got rocked.
He absolutely blew him up. And I don't think MacKinnon intended to make it a dirty hit. He's not that player. I want to be clear about my thoughts on MacKinnon. He is not a dirty player. He does not play the game on the wrong side of that edge, if you will. But he's a very good player. He's a very strong player. He knew the situation. He knew Nolan Patrick, and for lack of a better term, almost no one in the NHL can skate like him. So he definitely saw an opportunistic moment, and he shot his shot. And unfortunately, now in Nolan Patrick, I mean, it's not just that hit, obviously, but there's a lot of things that led up to it. But I don't know if we're ever going to see Nolan Patrick again on the ice, and that's unfortunate. And I know MacKinnon didn't intend for that to happen, but when these things do happen, there is a protocol, and you got to answer the bell. And I mean, MacKinnon's a tough guy too. MacKinnon has fought before. He's not Patrick Kane in that aspect, I guess you could say. But that said, I mean, Keegan Kolesar gonna go after him? I mean, I don't know. It's we'll carry, like, who's gonna do it, and is MacKinnon willing to drop the mitts if someone does challenge him? And I mean, listen, if we can get MacKinnon off the ice in the box for 5 minutes, I say we fight him 3 times if we can do it.
Right. That second line is of concern in the Bednar blender, if you will, for Colorado. So Nazem Kadri's spot was taken by that 21-year-old center, Alex Newhook. Again, they're having some issues. That's why they're finagling the lines and what have you. They signed Evan Rodriguez. You and I both thought that he would be a good target for PK on the second line. And Nikushkin, I think, is also on that line. And then they have, because of all the changes, Arturi Lehkonen now is on the first line. He's on the top line now with the absence of Gabe Landeskog. And, of course, they can shuffle him around later. This team's not set, and they're not playing consistent hockey. Again, to quote Jared Bednar, VGK's got a good chance, and especially coming off of the back-to-back. But I think they will see the number one goalie, Georgiev, in net tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, it's all fair, Tony. And, Colorado's got figured out right now. Like we said earlier, injuries, player turnover, and things like that. I don't know if there's a Stanley Cup champion that doesn't struggle out of the gate, because it's very common. They all have to go through it. There's not too many teams that are, $8 million away from the upper limit of the salary cap that win a Stanley Cup. And then they can, pay their players that are coming off free agency, acquire pieces and things like that. It just doesn't work like that. Most of the teams in the NHL are what we call cap teams, of course, being the Vegas Golden Knights. Then that odd contract that Nick Hague got, where basically, we maxed out the credit card, which left about 48 cents left in salary cap space. I'm sure if you look at Colorado, they're plus or minus $2 million, either upper or, above or below it, depending on the LTIR situation and things like that. Everyone can't have the luxury of a team like Anaheim, who has like 15 million to work with, or Detroit really emptied the checking account over the summer and acquired some big pieces. So, Colorado's got to figure it out. Everyone's going to be gunning for them, because we are just one of 31 teams whose coaches are going to say when Colorado comes to town, or when teams go to Colorado, they're going to talk about the test, right? So you're going to get up differently. You're going to react differently when you play the reigning Stanley Cup champion versus when, no disrespect to Seattle, but when the Seattle Kraken come to town. It's a different atmosphere. It's a different situation. T-Mobile will be an absolute party tomorrow night. It'll be an awesome experience for everyone that's going to be in attendance, and it'll be a lot different. Although Winnipeg, shout out to the Jets fans. They traveled pretty well last night. A lot of them probably making the trip from Colorado and Vegas, doing the multi-city tour here. You heard them in the national anthem, making their presence known when they say True North and stuff like that. And, Jets fans are always great to have in the Fortress. And I'm curious how many of the Colorado faithful will be in attendance as well.
Yeah, a nice Saturday night affair there at the Fortress. I found something interesting. Their second power play unit, right, for Colorado. They have 3 defensemen playing on that unit, which is an oddity, I think, in the National Hockey League, with Devin Tays, who's pretty much the captain of that power play unit. You've got Byron Bowen. You've got Sam Girard. It's pretty interesting, to put 3 defensemen, I think, on PP2. And I also wanted to ask you about Mark Stone now playing that bumper position.
So 2 things. One,
I'm
glad you led me to that, because I wanted to make a point about that I saw last night. But so that means now Colorado has 4 of their 6 defensemen participating in the power play when you throw Cale Makar into that mix. So that's pretty interesting, and that says something about the offensive ability of the Colorado defensemen. But I noticed, particularly in the second period, they did shuffle both power play units a little bit from what I read, and there was 2 real good opportunities on the same power play. Stone was in the bumper position. I forgot who it was in the first and on the other one, but it's the same power play where basically a puck goes to the winger, a puck goes low to someone not behind the net necessarily, but kind of where the trapezoid ends, and then they shoot it right out to the bumper, and hopefully they can get a goal off of it. And there's 2 real good back-to-back opportunities in the same power play. That said, you didn't see a lot out of the power play last night, and not that that's a concern by the way things have started, but a lot of shakeups are happening, and we got Colorado tomorrow night. You got to find a way to get those power play goals, because they're going to be tough to score on 5-on-5, and every opportunity you get, they have to make it count. And I wonder if you'll see the same units again on Saturday night, the same people in the same place, or if they're going to move them around. But, Mark Stone looked good. He had a couple of good looks on the power play, and things are moving in the right direction right now, Tony.
Coming up next, it's our latest edition of What the Friday WTF. We'll get to that when we return right here on Locked On Golden Knights. Thanks for making Locked On VGK your first listen today. Now for your second listen, it's Game to Game NHL starring Chris Golick. Every moment, every top performance, every single result. Locked On Game to Game covers each and every game, including the Vegas Golden Knights, across the NHL, with local analysis from Chris and others. And it's something that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And so speaking of Odyssey, tomorrow on my radio show, little shameless plug here, from 8 to 10, I have Rudy. You know the movie
awesome.
Rudy?
Of course.
So Rudy, because UNLV football, travels to Notre Dame. I thought it'd be nice to have him on the air. And go ahead. You can start off with our WTF, something good or bad about the VGK this week.
This is the city of entertainment. Other cities stack themselves up against what Vegas does. Other NHL teams are watching what the best production team, I think multi-years in a row now, what the best production team does, whether it's intermission entertainment, what they do between whistles and things like that. A lot of teams now measure themselves against the best production team in the entire National Hockey League. So Tony, and I put this on our feed, I think I did at least last night, between the second and third period, the on-ice entertainment was paper airplane races. They lined up 3 fans on the red line. They literally made their own paper airplanes in the tunnel, and they just they threw them, and whoever got theirs the farthest one. The first one went down faster than I wish I had something ready for that, but it went down so fast. It went like 1 inch. Chance goes down and puts his finger by it. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I got the video going. I got my own narration going. I'm just tilted at this point. The next person goes, and it goes maybe 1.5 feet. And at this point, I'm like, okay, but now here's where it starts to click. There was a plan, at least. They had someone out there in a Winnipeg Jets jersey to participate in the paper airplane throwing contest in an NHL game on a whatever. But so this person's about to throw it, and the Golden Knight happens to be standing next to him. Golden Knight like grabs him mid-throw, takes the airplane, puts it on the sword, and you get a little chuckle out of the crowd. So there was a plan, at least. Like, this wasn't just something where they just did it and took a shot. There was a plan, at least, but that definitely earns my WTF. What the Friday for the production crew doing paper airplanes in the city of entertainment. But at least, if there wasn't the Jets fan, like if it wasn't planned out, it might have been a little bit worse, but it was, I get it, but what the Friday.
She lost her youth and she lost her Tony, and now she lost her mind at the Copacabana. It's the only place that I'm going to be wearing this new VGK jersey, the reverse retro jersey. And I thought it would be like one of my cheap suits that literally was reversible. Like, you turn it inside out and you get something on the other side. I mean, they took that sword that Mark AF, Andre Fleury, that is, for you novices out there, the one that he was impaled with, they put that down the side of the pant legs too. I thought it was pretty cool. And then the diagonal Vegas, that's a different look. I think that the ice girls are going to have to go around on the ice with black lights now, so that we get the full effect of those glow in the dark features on this jersey. I think I'm going to buy one of those jerseys to go clubbing. One of our listeners, Beth Ann Jeffer, said the price of the new RR jerseys, not that everyone has $200 laying around. And then another one we saw, I just saw the shoulder patch, and I do not like that. Why do they have to ruin these jerseys? And that was from @Ska Mike. Everyone's in love with these new jerseys, the shiny new toy. I don't know. The jury's still out. I like them.
This is actually better than I thought. This is better than the reaction I thought that was coming, Tony.
Okay. Did you get a chance to see that jersey?
Yeah. So they had it
up in the press area.
So not in the press area. I saw it the same way everybody else did. They showed their video that they did at Resorts World during the third period. And they did show, they had one of the jerseys actually inside T-Mobile as well last night during that hype video. And it looks good in person. I like the glow in the dark. What I like, Tony, and this isn't towards you necessarily, but what I like is that it's blowing everyone's minds. They're freaking out about it. Oh my goodness. Glow in the dark jerseys. How dare the NHL do this? How does the 31st and 32nd teams in the NHL already have retro jerseys? This is terrible. That's what I love about it, Tony. I love it. It's great.
Okay, so WTF on that. I've got another
Go ahead. I'll take it home after that.
WTF. Okay. Back-to-backs for opponents. WTF. There's no foliage here in Las Vegas this time of year, but there is a Bill Foley. And I think he's got all of these other owners and the schedule maker, whoever that might be, under his Vegas spell. And I'm sure that he asked Gary Bettman and he called around the other owners of the league and called in favors. How do they get 3 teams on the tail end of back-to-backs coming to Las Vegas? Chicago. How did I say Chicago there? Chicago. That's a new way for me to pronounce it. Chicago, Winnipeg, and now the Avalanche. They come to Vegas on the back end. WTF. WTF.
What not necessarily WTF, but just an amazing perspective for me last night for what goes into seeing all this. From the moment I walked into T-Mobile last night and seeing all the crew at ice level, getting things ready for the game, and then walking around press row. It's not just media people up there. You see the entire control room where they're doing all the scoreboard stuff and all that. And it's not just one person clicking buttons. There's 9 people or 8 people or whatever the number is in that room, all doing things. You go by the replay room. You go by another room where the off-ice officials are tracking everything. Shout out to Eric and Chase and Travis and Vincey, some of my my officiating colleagues I ran into that also do all work on the NHL side of things, getting these games ready. You see all the media people, you got the radio people behind you and stuff, and you just don't understand what goes into producing an NHL game until you look around and just like you feel so small when you're up there, like you're doing your one little part. And we have our lockdown segment that's growing now. I'm very appreciative of all that. But, just all these different outlets getting the games to you, getting the information out there, the people making everything go. It was just a remarkable, wonderful experience getting to see all that and in the flesh, so to speak. So a positive WTF to everyone that's involved in making the NHL and the T-Mobile world and the Vegas Golden Knights world all evolve, I guess.
Okay, at J. Lee Bentley, 6 penalties in a period of hockey. They actually said the F-bomb in there too on our Twitter handle.
That's fair.
And then, guess what? WTF. I made the Locked On newsletter. I have arrived. I did personally. Yeah. My 1-year anniversary at Locked On VGK. WTF. They said it wouldn't last.
The overhit on that one, Tony. The overhit on that one.
They said it would not last. What do you have coming up hockey this weekend? We've got the VGK, of course, Saturday night. Are you headed to the game against Colorado?
Yeah, me and my son will be going. We'll be fans for that one. We'll be fans for that one. I'll get the cheer for goals. I'm looking forward to that. And UNLV is traveling. Silver Knights are out of town as well. So we got VGK Saturday and Monday.
All right. Don't forget, we'll have recaps of the Colorado game coming up on Monday, a preview of the Toronto game. For my man, Chris Golick, I'm Tony Cardasco from Las Vegas. Thanks for tuning in to Locked On Golden Knights.